Hi. So it was too sunny today to be in the basement reading. So welcome to my kitchen. Anyway, getting back into Flipped, we are going to go back into the dinner party. Juliana was kind of telling her side of things, and she's really, really ticked at Bryce. Um, and she had wandered over to talk to her dad and Bryce's grandfather. Let's see, they were talking about, she didn't even know for sure. She was just going to continue um, the conversation, just have something to do. So they were talking about perpetual motion machines. Let's see. So Bryce had just walked over. I could feel my cheeks flush with anger. Couldn't he see I wanted to be left alone? I took a step away from him, but what that did was open up the group and allow him to move forward. Now he was standing in our circle listening to our discussion. Well, he was not interested in perpetual motion. I barely was myself. So I reasoned continuing our discussion would drive him away. I dove back in, and when the conversation started to peter out, I came up with my own ideas on perpetual motion machines. I was like a perpetual idea machine, spinning ridiculous suggestions right out of the air. And still he wouldn't leave. He didn't say anything, he just stood there, listening. Then, when Mrs. Lasky announced that dinner was ready, Bryce held my arm and whispered, Julie, I'm sorry. I've never been so sorry about anything in my whole life. You're right. I was a jerk. I'm sorry. I yanked my arm free from his grasp and said, It seems to me you've been sorry about a whole lot of things lately. And I left him there with his apology hanging wounded in the air. It didn't take me long to realize that I'd made a mistake. I should have let him say he was sorry, then simply continued to ignore him. But I had snapped at him in the middle of an apology, which somehow made me the rude one. I sneaked a peek at him across the table, but he was watching his dad, who was asking my brothers about graduating and their plans for college. I had, of course, seen Mr. Lasky many times, but usually from a distance. Still, it seemed impossible that I had never noticed his eyes before. They were blue, brilliant blue. And although Mr. Lasky's were set farther back and were hidden somewhat by his eyebrows and cheekbones, there was no mistaking where Bryce had gotten his eyes. His hair was black too, like Bryce's, and his teeth were white and straight. Even though Chet had called Bryce the spitting image of his father, I've never really thought of them as looking alike. But now I saw that they did look alike, though where his dad seemed kind of smug, Bryce seemed, well, right now he seemed angry. Then from the other side of the table, I heard, Your sarcasm is not appreciated, Dad. Mrs. Lasky gave a small gasp, and everyone looked at Lynetta. Well, it's not, she said. In all the years we've lived across the street from the Laskys, I've said about 10 words to Lynetta, and she's said fewer back. To me, she's scary. So it wasn't a surprise to see her glaring at her father, but it was uncomfortable. Mrs. Lasky kept was keeping a smile perched on her face, but she was blinking a lot, glancing nervously around the table. I looked from one person to the next two, wondering if dinner at the Laskys was always this tense. Suddenly, Lynetta got up and dashed down the hall, but she was back in a flash with a CD in her hand. And when she put it in the player, I recognized one of my brother's songs blaring through the speakers. We heard this song, Candle Ice, pouring out of my brother's bedroom at least a million times, so we were used to it. But I looked over at my mom, worried that she might be embarrassed by the distorting guitars and the gritty lyrics. This was definitely not caviar music. She seemed a little uncertain, but in a happy way. She was sharing secret smiles with my father, and honestly, I think she even giggled. My dad was looking amused, although he was very reserved about it, and it took me until the end of the song to realize that he was proud that this noise came from his boys. That surprised me. Dad has never been real big on on any rendition of my brother's band, although he's never really criticized it either. But then Mr. Lasky started grilling Matt and Mike about how they had afforded to record their own music, and they explained about working and saving and shopping for good deals on equipment. And that's when I realized why my father was proud. My brothers were feeling pretty good too, you could tell. And it was no wonder with the way Lynetta was carrying on about how great Candle Ice was. She was positively gushing, which seemed very odd coming from Lynetta. As I looked around, it struck me that we were having dinner with a group of strangers. We had lived across the street for years, but I didn't know these people at all. Lynetta did know how to smile. Mr. Losky was clean and smooth on the outside, but there was a distinct whiff of something rotten buried just beneath the surface. And the ever efficient Mrs. Losky seemed flustered, almost hyper. Was it having us over that was making her nervous? And then there was Bryce, the most disturbing of all, because I had to admit that I didn't really know him either. And based on what I had discovered lately, I didn't care to know any more. Looking across the table at him, all I got was a strange, detached, neutral feeling. No fireworks, no leftover anger or resurging flutters, nothing. Hmm, well, she certainly has flipped just the opposite direction, hasn't she? Hmm. We'll get the rest of it next time. Thanks for stopping by. Hope you have a great day. Go enjoy some of this sunshine, will ya? Be kind to one another.